From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Good afternoon and welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Nick Oresco. The COVID-19 pandemic changed many ideas about work and the workplace. Some people quit their jobs to find new careers. Others worked from home and did well with productivity. The term work-life balance has become a new key phrase when people consider what they want in a career. This week on 22 News in Focus, we'll be talking about the changing landscape in work culture and what employers and employees can do to make the workplace more productive and supportive. Joining me now is Gina DeStefano, founder and CEO of the DeStefano Group, a company offering consulting services to businesses and helping improve the workplace and building success. Thank you, Gina, for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about the workplace as a whole. Obviously, COVID-19 changed really everything so much from 2020, and even now, still a lot of changes are taking place. What are the reasons that some employees want to continue working from home even 4 years later?
Well, I think it's a personal preference. One thing the pandemic did allow is for people that had never worked remote before to experience that, and I think a lot of people found that it worked better for their lives.
And what is the benefit to employers to continue this remote model?
A couple reasons that come to mind. First would be, one, is the employee happier and are they producing results better than they were in the workplace? And two is costs. If the majority of your employees want to continue working remotely, that's a big overhead that can be removed by allowing your employees to remain remote.
A lot of flexibility with that too,
yes.
Especially with the employee standpoint. You don't really have to go anywhere,
exactly.
Right?
Your travel time is cut right in half.
Right. Your gas
exactly.
is very limited.
A lot of savings too.
Right. What are the reasons that employers want employees to return to work? Obviously, a lot of businesses now, especially the last year or so, is telling employees to come back into the workplace, into the actual building itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, just as there are perks to being remote, there are perks to working back in the office. I think for some employers, they may want the control back of knowing what people are doing 24/7 while they're under their watch or whatever you want to call it. And I think for other employers, knowing the benefit of when people come together, the synergy that happens. And so there's a different energy when people are in an office working together versus working remotely. Both have their benefits, but it's about the employer finding out what works best for their company.
Right, and you mentioned just keeping an eye or keeping track of what the employee is doing. I know somebody who works from home who does laundry, does the dishes, they do other things while at home because of the convenience, rather than if you were in a building, an actual work building, you would not be doing that. Well,
what you would probably be doing is scrolling social media or doing other things to take up time, because as we all know, nobody works straight, but that's another benefit. Some people have found that they're actually more focused at home. They want to get their work done. There's no disruptions from coworkers. You can relieve yourself from office gossip, things like that, and you can get your laundry done while getting your work done. So, it all depends on the individual, really.
For some businesses, people need to be in person. Hotels, restaurants, the list goes on of in-person workplaces. Some people left those industries, though. What are some ways to attract people back to those jobs?
Well, I don't really think sometimes it does have to do with the pandemic, and it doesn't, but it's under still the same umbrella of you have to create a good environment where people want to come. So you have to create the culture, and maybe the pandemic did get people away from it and gave them the opportunity to go do something else, but just like any industry, people aren't leaving bad industries. They're leaving bad cultures. They're leaving bad bosses. So if you fix that problem, regardless of the industry you're in, you're going to attract people back to want to come to work.
And going off of that, Gina, we all want to work in an environment where, we feel supported, respected, we feel listened to, and addressed, obviously. What are some signs of a toxic workplace environment?
Some obvious signs are high turnover, low retention. People obviously don't want to be there. There are call-outs when they're there. It's low morale, like bad productivity. There are a lot of obvious signs to a toxic work environment.
So how do you approach this with your clients, and what have you found works in correcting those kind of issues?
Well, you approach it carefully,
Yep.
you want to find universals within an organization. So I always want to meet with the leader first. It's leader-led top-down. You want to get their perspective of what's going on, but then you have to go through the people. The people are what drive your bottom line. They're the ones that are going to tell you the truth once you get a certain level of trust with them. And sometimes it is in alignment with the leader, sometimes it's not. And it's about finding those universals and then taking action from there.
We've all been in situations where we may not get along with our manager. How does an employee approach something like this? Again, I'm sure it's somewhat calm and peaceful and, a slow process.
It's a tough process,
Yeah.
though, because when you're looking at your manager, I think you have two obvious approaches. One is to have that uncomfortable, transparent conversation, which can be difficult for many people. This is your boss. They sign your paycheck. And a lot of people aren't going to have the ability to do that. And if you don't have the courage to have that conversation, then you're going to want to probably look for another job if you can't feel heard and respected by your leader.
And I think confrontation scares a lot of people.
Conflict scares a lot of people, even the leaders, because if you are a strong leader, you're the one that's going to realize the friction and you're going to address it before you make an employee that uncomfortable that they have to address you.
So what can a manager do if they have a good worker but they are difficult with other employees?
That's another one,
Right.
because it only takes one, right? It takes one bad apple, and I think you have to really do your due diligence on that person to see just how much they're affecting the overall environment, the culture of your organization. And if you can improve it and document it, you have to let them go. You have to let them go, but you can't just let them go because somebody said they didn't like so-and-so. There
Right.
has to be a little bit more of an in-depth research going on, but bottom line is if that one bad person is affecting everyone else, they have to go.
And when somebody is working from home, you don't really have to deal or see your manager a lot, right?
Yes.
Obviously, they have Zooms now where you have meetings maybe in the morning or once or twice a day, but it's not that constant contact of seeing and talking with your manager.
Yeah, and again, that can work on your behalf if you don't particularly like your manager, but you can still get your work done and not have to be around them. Or if you really do like your supervisor or your leader and you want to be around them because you have more visibility with them, you have more opportunities to learn and evolve around them. So once again, it kind of depends on what's going on.
Yeah, it depends on the person too, I think.
Yes.
All right, we'll continue our conversation after the break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. We're talking about the changing workplace environment with Gina DeStefano, founder and CEO of the DeStefano Group, a company offering consulting services to businesses to help improve the workplace and build success. Gina, while the success of a business depends on everyone working together, effective leadership sets the tone in employees as well as clients. What do you think are the top leadership skills for a manager?
I think the top three skills that make an effective manager or leader are first and foremost confidence, being able to have the courage to admit what you know and admit what you don't know. The second would be the ability to hold a vision for the organization and take people with you with that. And the third would be the execution of that, to follow through on everything.
And I think it doesn't take a long time to realize when a manager isn't confident or has any of those skills, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't take long.
No. And it's like not only to the trained eye, to the untrained eye. That's why employees don't stay and there's not a good culture going on. It's because it's hard to do that when you don't respect your leader.
Right, you can almost look right through them.
Yeah.
How would you define strong leadership?
It's again, it comes right down to that confidence. A strong leader can walk in and not necessarily have to be the smartest person in the room. Oftentimes leaders aren't. You don't want to be the smartest person in your room. You want to know the strengths, but your strengths should be being able to hold that vision, having a charisma and a presence of wanting people to listen to you. They want to follow you. They believe in you. And then you do have the ability to have those hard conversations, to hold people accountable, but to do it in a firm but fair and respectful way.
And you can manage without being an actual manager as your title, right? So how is leadership different from managing?
I think it comes down to that visionary piece where a manager, to me, is someone that can execute someone else's vision. They're very good at being able to have the conversations to hold people accountable. A leader is able to take it a step further, and it's that visionary. It's that person that walks into a room, everyone knows that is someone. That's someone who is in control of a situation. That's a leader.
And it makes things a lot smoother, too, and easier.
Yes.
Employees may complain, of course, about a toxic work environment created by a manager, a supervisor, or even the owner of a business. Who makes spur-of-the-moment decisions, plays favorites, sets high expectations without support in place?
So what's the difference between someone who is setting
the standards.
the standards? Oh, the difference between micromanaging and
Right.
effective leadership. I think the key thing is that micromanager never lets go and doesn't know how to do that, doesn't trust their employees. And that's what makes employees really not be able to stand their manager, is when you're not even giving me the opportunity to do anything, because that's a lack of confidence in that leader. Where a true leader can set the expectations, can ask you, what do you need from me to support you? What is it going to take? What would prevent you from doing this? Having those conversations and then giving enough space to allow that person to do it, and coming in when necessary and stepping out when not necessarily. And someone who is a micromanager and not confident within themselves never lets go and is never able to step away.
What are some of the reasons a business reaches out to you for help?
I think in one of those major 3 areas before, if that leader or manager in charge is lacking that confidence. And when you lack the confidence, then you can't create the vision that you used to create. And then when you can't create the vision, then you can't execute. So it's kind of a domino effect of things, but usually it is because there is a lack of clarity or vision, execution, accountability within an organization.
And what is included in your executive coaching?
Executive coaching has many components. I think the first is to assess the leader and the organization. It's always leader-led, top-down. So before we go in and do any in-depth work, we need an understanding of what is lacking according to the leader. And then it's about finding out other areas of opportunity within the business, whether it's operations, culture, talent acquisition, retention, whatever major opportunities are, going in and fixing it from there.
How important is it to revisit a business plan and make adjustments to changes in the market?
It's very important to always be on top of not only what's going on in your market, in your industry, your competition. Keeping tabs on things constantly is imperative to running a successful business.
We've seen obviously a lot of changes with COVID-19 4 years ago when the onset started, but it's still here today. What are you seeing right now with people, clients, businesses coming in and asking you for help?
A big thing now is, when it comes back to that, is everyone is saying nobody wants to work anymore. Nobody wants to work anymore. And I think that is sometimes an excuse on the part of owners and leaders. I disagree. I believe people want to work, but they want to work in environments where they feel special, understood, and excited to be there, and they're compensated. So if you as a leader can create that, people will want to work.
I feel like sometimes we hear about the generational gap where the younger generation doesn't want to work, or at least that's what we assume, but you don't think that's true?
No, I don't. I think that the younger generation now has the courage to speak up to what I am, Gen X boomers, we weren't able to. So we grew up in business a very different way, but there is something to be said to the millennials and the Gen Zers coming up being like, listen, that's not gonna fly anymore. You know, we're giving you a lot of us. And in return, again, we just want the same respect. We want to feel like we're contributing, and we want to be compensated.
And if they don't feel respected, usually they leave the job.
Yeah, and they should, you know, and that's another thing too. I have over 20 years of recruiting, and I always want to give the power back to the candidates in a lot of situations where don't forget who you are and that company needs you and why you're going to interview. You are interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you, and take your power back.
So maybe a good message for managers out there: if they are hiring a younger clientele, be patient, be respectful, and they'll stay.
Yes, and be open to what they have to say. Often when I grew up in business, I remember when I first started, I was working in DC, and we were told that the president of the company, if he got on the elevator with us, we were not to make eye contact. Now, granted, this was over 20 years ago,
right.
But if I ever started working for a company now and they were like, Gina, don't make eye contact, I'm leaving. I'm absolutely leaving. That would be the most insulting thing somebody could say. But 22-year-old Gina was like, okay, I won't make eye contact.
Right.
That's the rules.
Well, you want to see your manager in the workplace, right? You want to see them walking around, conversating.
Yes, and you want to aspire to be like them. That's why you want to stay in an organization, because you believe that under that leadership, one day you can become that. And that they are no better than you. They just have more experience. They want to take you with them. Again, that's that leader that wants to take people with them.
Right.
You know, a confident leader is not afraid of having someone take their job.
Nope, you want to see it. All right, having a coach or a consultant can go beyond the business environment. After the break, we'll talk ways to bring positivity and meaning to work and your personal life. You're watching 22 News in Focus. We're back now with 22 News in Focus. We've discussed what makes an effective leader in the workplace, but employers have certain expectations about what employees should bring to the table. While we all want to do our best in every situation, sometimes things just don't work out. Let's bring back Gina now. Gina, when someone is looking for a job, what should they consider when applying or accepting a position?
I think we talked a little bit about this earlier. Remembering your power, remembering you have more control and power over that interview than you think you do. And when you're there, don't be afraid to ask them questions too, and think to yourself, is this a good fit for my life? Is there flexibility here? Can I work remote, hybrid? Ask, why is this position open? What's the culture like here? Don't be afraid to interview the interviewer just as much as they're interviewing you.
How can someone contribute to creating trusting relationships within an organization, community, and among family and friends?
I think we have to remember that we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are. So you have to become what you want to represent in an organization. So I think it's about staying true to who you are, your morals and values, being able to set boundaries, and assessing your work environments too before you open up or show more about you. Give it some time.
I think it could be dangerous too, maybe oversharing with somebody in a workplace.
It's still work, and even though we've talked about how, you know, there's no two separate buckets, there's no personal life and professional life. At work, there's so much time spent, you can't help but share your personal, but you have to remember that this is a workplace. There are set goals and intentions, and you have to have some boundaries around how you present yourself and show up at work.
Right. Sometimes people see coworkers more than their actual family.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's your work family.
Yeah. When we interact with others in a respectful, positive, collaborative way, we contribute to a thriving work environment, obviously. How can an employee help in creating a positive working environment where they are?
Again, I think it's going in and setting intentions for yourself and not being someone who participates in the office gossip or chatter. That doesn't stir the pot. Know why you're there, and if you have issues, have the courage to take it up with your manager and leader and not go behind the scenes and talk to everyone else about it.
Right, don't cause trouble.
Exactly, and that's hard sometimes because that's how I think a lot of people bond at work too. It's through commiserating over the boss. However, the boss is still the one that's going to promote you, that's going to take you places, and that needs to know what's going on within their organization.
Right, it's our society, right? We have to communicate. That's our way of almost living.
Yep.
Well, disagreements at work and in one's personal life are reality, of course. Can't get away from that. But you can control how you contribute and respond to conflict. What are some useful strategies to address issues when they come about?
Strategies for conflict, it really comes down to respect and understanding why we are all here. Going after that shared goal, bringing people back to their why, and holding them accountable to it.
In business as well as in our personal life, we deal with many types of personalities. There are so many personalities in one building. What are some ways to improve relationships to get people to work together?
I think it's when you're a good leader too. You know the commonalities between employees. That is also your job as a good leader. It's to know your people and then know who are going to play nice in certain sandboxes and who are not. So you might want to try to figure out who's going to work well together, maybe separating them at certain times and just acknowledging we're all adults here. So, you know, we don't have to get too personal. We don't have to make it, but a good leader will know who's going to work well together, who's not going to work well together, and to keep communication open in a respectful way.
We're all adults, but sometimes it's like a kindergarten strategy.
More often than not.
Right.
It really is. You know, being an owner, a boss is like being a parent. You know, you really are. You're raising your work family.
Now, some people juggle jobs, school relationships, children all at once. And of course, that can lead to some stressful, overwhelming times. How can someone effectively and successfully manage multiple facets in their life?
Well, that's $1 million question.
Yeah, right.
Because I think
no one's figured it out.
No, I can help you out, and that's another big reason why I'm hired on that personal side is probably from the ages of your 20s to your 60s. There's always something major going on to juggle during your professional career. So the best I can offer, which I do on myself too, is bringing yourself back to the present moment. That's it. That's all we have control over. And when you're juggling things, sometimes it's really hard to figure out what is my next step to do when there's a million things to do. So if you can learn the tools and the techniques to bring yourself back to that present moment and just do the next best thing, that'll take you very far, because there's no pause in life. And it's just, when it's not, what is that? When it's not one thing, it's another.
Right.
So it's about learning how to bring yourself back to now, and then just do the next best thing instead of overwhelming yourself with, what do I, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years from now.
And it's hard to hide your feelings sometimes when you're at home as opposed to when you're in the workplace,
Yeah.
right? You have to kind of put that barrier in front of you and be like, I'm at work now, I have to kind of put on a face.
Very shocked at how many people go to work without that barrier.
There's many.
That is another reason why I get called.
Yes.
People don't understand that there should be a barrier
Yes,
when you come to work. So, not always.
They should contact you.
Yes, I can explain what a barrier is. Again, that's a boundary.
Right. How can we say no to overextending ourselves and not feeling guilty?
You say no.
Right.
But that's another big piece of that personal work. It takes a lot of confidence to say no. And for some people, it's easy. For the majority, it's not. And especially when you're an owner or a leader and so many people are depending on you, it's hard to set those boundaries. But the more work you do on yourself to understand what you need to function at your best, the easier it becomes to say no to anyone that jeopardizes that.
So what types of services can a personal coach provide to help someone with personal and professional goals and growth?
Well, once again, I always say there are no two separate buckets in life. You don't have a personal life and a professional life. So the beauty of personal coaching, that leads into the executive coaching that I do also, the professional coaching, is that coming back to who am I? What do I really want holistically? And what's the best course of action to get there? And what are my blocks? It's raising awareness to what do I really want? Figuring out, am I surrounding myself with the right people to get me there? Am I speaking correctly to articulate exactly what I want out of my professional career, out of my personal life? And then it's helping people execute that.
It's a learning experience, right? We're all human beings.
We learn until we are no longer here.
Exactly. All right, I'll have some final words when we return. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You've been watching 22 News in Focus. Today we've been looking at ways to improve the environment in the workplace and in one's personal life with Gina DeStefano, founder and CEO of the DeStefano Group. Thank you, Gina, for being with us today. Where can people find you?
You can find me, just go to our website. It's DeStefanoGroup.com. You can fill out contact information, learn more about us and what we do.
Okay, great information, great stuff.
Yes.
All right, Gina, thank you as always, and thank you for joining us for this program of 22 News in Focus. You can find it all on our website at wwlp.com. From all of us here at 22 News, enjoy the rest of your Sunday.